Hello, we welcome you to this Banking Blessing Bible study. My name is Goodluck Ofebu, and this is my wife,
Ofebu. We
welcome you to the concluding session of our series on series on parent-child relationship, but only the first part of the series that looked at understanding that God sends messages to children through their parents. We've looked at several examples, and one of the things we realized that there are three categories of messages that we'll summarize briefly. But some of the messages, several of the messages come as normal parent-child interaction, normal parental interaction, which means the parent most of the time doesn't know that this is a message from God, and the child doesn't know. All they know is that the parent and the child are interacting, and parent delivers instruction and makes requests and gives advice to the child. Then we felt that it is important to look at what a child needs to do in order to receive these messages. These are messages from God, and God sends these messages to accomplish a purpose for the child or with the child. So it's important to see what a child needs to do to receive these messages so that they will accomplish the reason for which God is sending the message to the child. So today we're going to look at what a child needs to do to receive messages that God sent to him or her through parents. We understand that the parent of a child, we haven't covered this aspect of the study yet, but a parent, there are parents, parents that live at home with children, there are biological parents, there are other types of parents. But parent in this context is actually quite wide. There are people that have parental role. They may not be parents in certain sense, but they have a parental role. A very good example being Eli, a strong parental role on the life of Samuel. And there are several parent-child relationships like that. Even a teacher that teaches teaches a child, the pastor of a child, the sports coach, or whatever person that is in a position to guide that child through a certain aspect of childhood training, a certain aspect of preparation for adulthood. So it is quite possible that God will send message through this person to the child, and there are certain ways certain types of habit the child needs to develop in order to receive these messages. So what we're going to learn today is what a child needs to do to receive messages from God through the parent, and we're going to look specifically at the three of the examples we studied. That is the interactions between Samuel and Eli, the interactions between Joseph and his father when Joseph was called to the Egypt mission, and the interaction between David and his father when David was called to the mission to fight Goliath. As I said there, we studied three categories of messages. The first category being a clear message to a child through the parent. And in this case, the parent knows that this is a message from God, and the child is expected to implement the content of the message, either by himself or herself, or with guidance from the parent. Like in the case of Samuel, the message came clearly to Eli. Of course, it took 3 attempts, and we've talked about it in the past, but we'll talk about it briefly again. It took 3 attempts. But once Eli realized that God was trying to talk to Samuel, he told Samuel, okay, this is what is going on. God wants to talk to you, and the next time he calls you, this is how you should answer. Then you must speak for your servant is listening. So with that instruction, so this was a clear case of the parent knows it's a message from God. He delivers that message to the child and guides the child in implementing the message. The example is from Call of Samuel. We're not going to read it. We've read it before. The second category was a direct instruction to a parent, usually telling the parents something to do on behalf of the child. And in many of these cases, the instruction is to be implemented by the parent. In some cases, the instruction is to be implemented by the child, but with strong guidance, with strong participation by the parent. We looked at a number of examples. We looked at the covenant of call it covenant or circumcision. It was really God's covenant with Abraham. Circumcision was just a symbol of the Abraham's side of the circumcision. Of the covenant. God promised to be the God of Abraham and his descendants if they will worship and serve him. And of course, this was for us. God promised to be our God if we worship and serve him. But as a symbol of this, of the promise to worship and serve God, then he established the practice of circumcision, that every male child born to Abraham and his descendants will be circumcised at age 8 days old. So because this will be done at such an early age, it was really for the parents to implement. But generations of descendants of Abraham, of course, learn this through their parents and implement it for their children. Well, another example was the interaction between Rebekah and his children, Jacob and Esau. We don't want to go through the details, but God gets specific instruction to Rebekah about the family inheritance, the blessing that God promised Abraham that was passed to Isaac and now will be passed to one of Isaac's children. And the instruction was, at least to the extent that it was understood by Rebekah, the instruction was that Jacob will be the person to receive this. Now, Rebekah was supposed to now help his children to implement this instruction, and we know how it happened. Esau took himself out based on the instruction he received from his father. And then Rebekah gave instruction to Jacob on what to do, but you could see that Jacob really didn't understand it and argued with Rebekah, or rather questioned. So this is a case where the instruction was to be implemented by the child, but with a strong input, maybe strong control by the parent, strong guidance by the parent. Then we looked at the case of Joseph, the earthly father of Christ, the flight to Egypt and the return from Egypt to Israel. This clear instruction from God. The child was too young to do anything by himself, so the parent carried out the instruction. The third category of message is normal. This is actually probably the most prevalent because it's delivered through normal parent-child interaction. A parent in normal interaction with the child give the child an instruction, give the child an advice, makes a request of the child, or exchanges information with the child in several normal ways that parents and children interact, not knowing that the information that he or she is passing to the child is actually a message from God. And the child, of course, will not know it. The child will receive the message if he or she normally listens to the parents and receives information from the parent and carries out what the parents, obeys what the parents tell him or her to do. We saw the example of Joseph. Joseph's call to Egypt. We will look at it a little more. We also looked at the example of David when he was called to go and battle with Goliath. In each of these, it was really a parent, and these two were remarkably similar. The parent sending a child on an errand, and then the child going and in the process getting into a mission that neither he nor the parents thought about at the beginning. Most of what we are going to do today is really talking like this, explaining things, because we've discussed all of this before and read the passages, but today we are kind of trying to look at one aspect that we probably talked about a little bit during each of the sessions, but we want to give emphasis so that we can maybe get the maximum benefit from this. But in the process of talking like that, I haven't really given my wife a chance to talk, to speak. You know, but only cutting at any point if you see something that, you know, of course there will be some time for both of us to chat. Okay, so let us look at then how does a child receive the message, starting with the first category. We're going to look at the three message categories individually. The first message category is the clear message to child through parent, which is the Samuel example. In this case, God communicates with the parent, tells the parent something that the parent needs to pass to the child. And the way that God communicates with the parent is really between God and the parent. God chooses. We had a previous Bible study in which we understood that God chooses how to communicate with any person and has several possibilities of ways to communicate. It could be directly through a human voice, but God speaking to the parent directly. It could be through another person that delivers a message to a parent. It could be through a vision. It could be just the Holy Spirit talking to the parent either clearly or in whichever way. We remember in the case of Peter and Cornelius, God appeared to Peter in a vision, but sent an angel to talk to Cornelius. So it's the same God choosing different ways to talk to people. So he communicates to the parents. And then the parent receives the message and gives and delivers it to the child. The parent knows clearly. The example of Eli was, it's a very good example. The call, the message actually came. It was for Samuel. It was coming to Samuel directly, but God needed Eli to intervene, needed Eli to explain something to Samuel. And the interaction is interesting because three times God called Samuel, and each time Samuel thought it was Eli calling him and ran to Eli. What does that tell us? Think of what would have happened if Samuel wasn't somebody that wanted to respond to Eli. I mean, Eli was an old man lying in his place. Samuel was in his place in the house of God. He could have pretended he didn't hear Eli. But each time he had Eli, he ran to him because he had a need to understand what Eli needed from him and to provide it. And that's why he kept going repeatedly. Even the first time he went, nothing came out of it. The second time, nothing came out of it. He still went the third time. And that's when Eli realized, oh, God wants to speak to this child. Then he explained it to Samuel and then told Samuel what to do. So that's a very good example, but it sort of tells the kind of things that can happen in this category. It probably won't be the same for every person. But the common characteristic is the message, the parent understands that this is a message from God. If this is a child that is available to the parent and listens to the parent, then he or she will be able to receive the message when the parent wants to communicate to him. Honey, do you want to comment on this before we go to the other categories?
Yeah, and what comes to my mind here is that the fact that in this category, both child and parent are involved in receiving from God. If each one of them did not play their role, probably that mission would have been truncated.
Yeah.
For example, if Samuel did not consistently go back to Eli, because obviously he didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
All he knew is like, oh, the only adult that is calling me here is Eli.
Yeah.
And he kept going to Eli to find out why Eli was calling him. Now, you could see that he's a respectful and obedient child.
Yes.
Because many kids would, at some point will say, but I've gone to, my master more than once. I say, he's not calling me. Whatever it is, leave it.
Yeah.
Now, that would have been truncated. But each time he heard, he still respectfully went back to Eli.
Yes.
Now, Eli, on his own part, played his role by understanding, being attentive, and something must be happening to this child.
Yes.
And therefore, being the person that has the experience in hearing God and knowing the way that God works, realize that God is trying to speak to this child.
Yes.
If he had said, what's wrong with this boy? What's up with him?
Yeah.
Go and sleep and stop disturbing me, without putting a thought to what was happening, that particular message could have been truncated. And who knows what will happen about the call
Yes.
of someone.
That's a very important point, that there was a role for the parent and a role for the child. And what was that? And this role, the roles were played because the parents had a habit of thinking about his communication with the child and not just thinking that the child was crazy. The same thing, the child was persistent in answering his parent. Each time he had that call, his mind went to Eli and he ran to Eli to answer.
The point is a child that is very respectful.
Yes.
We're talking about in the night when he's sleeping.
Yes.
A call wakes him up.
Yes.
He goes, disturbs his sleep, goes the first time, and he said, no, I didn't call you.
Yeah.
The call comes back, disturbs his sleep, he gets up. Many kids would have given up.
Yes.
And not go back the third time. Even if they manage the second time, the third time, probably not.
Yes.
But this is a child that is respectful. And each time he heard his name, which he believed was coming from an adult that has authority over him, it didn't matter that he was sleeping or what he was doing, he dropped it and went to find out. And that's very important in our communication.
Yes.
With children who are our wards,
Yes.
whether we are parents or custodians.
Yes.
It's very, very important that we inculcate this in them to follow through.
Yes. Okay. We will talk about these more, but let us just look through the next one. In this case, this is the case of instruction coming to a parent about what to do for a child. The thing here is that the parent has most of the work to do. The child may or may not be involved. Now, in the usual case, based on the examples we looked at, the parent has responsibility to implement the message on behalf of the child. So in that case, it's really the parent that has to receive the communication and determine the right time to implement it and go ahead and implement it. Now, there may be a case, just like the example of Jacob and Rebekah, where the child will participate in the implementation. Then in that case, the same thing we discussed about Samuel also applies. That is, the child has to be available to the parent, has to be obedient to the parent, has to listen to parental communication, parental instructions, with the intent, not just listening to retort, but listening with the intent. In fact, in this particular case, Jacob actually didn't. It didn't occur. He immediately didn't want to do what he was told. He had doubts, but instead of quarreling or arguing with his parent, he respectfully asked the question, and the parent said, "Okay, I'll take responsibility for this. If anything goes wrong, let God blame me." So, being obedient to the parent, being available to your parent, being somebody that listens with intent to understand and implement is very important. You want me to proceed? Or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Then we come to what I think is the most important. That is normal parental. That is the messages that come through normal parent-child interaction. In this particular type of message, the child does not know that this is a message from God. The parent does not know that somehow God maybe touches the parent or raises a need in the parent's mind or prompts the parent one way or the other to communicate something to the child. And this is quite real, because if you look at the example of Joseph and the example of David, it was quite clear. A parent saw a need, called the child and said, "Okay, can you go and do this?" Not knowing that he was sending this child on a critical mission. And the child listened, the child obeyed, the child was available to the parent. And because the child was available to the parent saw him when Joseph was available to his parents, so his father saw him when he needed him to say, "Okay, go and check on your brothers in the field." David was available to his parents, even though he was the shepherd. He could have easily said, "Oh, I'm in the field, don't worry me, old man." But he was available and he paid attention. His father said, "Okay, I want you to go and check on your brothers at the battlefront." Another aspect of this is that there was the objective of the errand is very important. In both cases, look at in the case of Joseph, he went to Shechem, where he and his father assumed his brothers would be, and he didn't find them. Now, a lot of children that don't pay attention to the objective of the errand would have gone back. They'll say, "Okay, I got to Shechem, they are not there," and they'll go back. Well, that would have truncated the mission. But he realized that the objective of the errand was to check on him, to interact with his brothers, to see them, see how they are doing, how the flock was doing, and then take information back to his father. So, listening and then understanding what needs to be done was important. Then at Shechem, he found somebody that said, "Oh no, your brothers have moved on to Dothan," and he followed them there. Same thing with David. He got to the camp, his brothers had just left to the war front. Well, if the intention was just drop supplies, he would have dropped the supplies and go back and say, "Yeah, no, I didn't see them. When I went there, they went to the battlefield." But the specific instruction was, go and find out how they are doing, how the battle is going, and bring back information. So to accomplish the objective of the errand, why that is important is that, remember, it was in the process of discussing with his brothers at the battlefield that he encountered Goliath. If he had left, if he had turned around at the camp, that would have been the end. He would not have known there was a Goliath. The same thing with Joseph, of course, when he got to Gotham, he made himself available to his brothers by meeting them, and then they picked him up, and the story continued from there. So listening to the parents, paying attention to what the parent says, being willing to do. In fact, when we look at all of this, it takes me back to a study we did several months ago about fear. It's really a child that has a positive fear of the parent, and the positive fear meaning always seeking to please the parents through obedience, love, and wholehearted service. Not being afraid of the parents, but having a desire to do something for them, to understand what the parent needs. At times I say parent in a singular, at times I say parents in plural, but it applies to every parent. Understanding what the parent, having a desire to serve the parent. That is really what is important here. Because that motivates the child to pay attention to what the parent is saying. Listen with an intent to implement, to complete, to do it completely. Understand what the objective, and then complete the objective.
Yeah. Another thing that here it might look like a lot of the work that has to be done in making sure this mission moves forward rests on the child being able to fully implement the message he has been given. Not to do it halfway. But there is also a role. Yes, we know a child's upbringing, what you have built into the child, fear of the parents, that is flows from fear of God. And when we talk about fear of the parents, it's like respect for the parent, seeking to please them and all that.
Yes.
Not fear that, oh, my parents are coming and then you are trembling. No. Not even that. When we talk about fear of God, it's not, oh, God is wielding a big axe to chop off my head if I do something wrong. But it's fear of God, to stand in awe of Him, to respect Him, to want to do what pleases God, to obey, So all that, amounts to fear of God.
Yes.
You have proven Him, you want to please this God. The same thing with fear of parents.
Yes.
That's what we are referring to here.
Yes.
However, to build this into a child, a parent must be able to hold the child accountable for the message you have given to the child.
Yes.
If you don't hold them accountable, for example, in the case of David, the father said, go and bring me back information. If David stopped at the first point, where he was now told his brothers are at the war front, and says, no, I'm scared of the war front, I'm not going to go further, he has not gotten direct information about his brothers.
Mm-hmm.
If he stops there and goes back, the onus would be on his father to say, I asked you to see your brothers.
Yes.
But you have not brought me information about them. You just dropped the supplies somewhere.
Yeah.
How do you know this? How do you know that?
Yeah.
So the onus is on us as parents to hold children or our words accountable for messages or errands we have sent them that we feel have not been appropriately executed the way that it was delivered. Because if we leave it halfway, then the child begins to build that. Oh, my father will not mind. Once you can't hold them accountable, then anything goes.
Yes. Yes, and in fact, what this leads us to actually is that yes, there is a responsibility for the child, which we've spent a lot of time discussing, but there is also a responsibility for the parent. There is a responsibility for the parent, and what my wife said is, actually making sure that your child develops a habit of understanding and completing. Now, the reason this is important is that you don't know which errand you send the child has something to do with something else that God wants that child to learn. Maybe that God wants the child to do something, or God wants the child to encounter an experience, or God wants the child to encounter somebody. Like in the case of David, God wanted David to encounter Goliath. So because David knew the objective of his errand, he didn't know anything about Goliath. He just knew his father asked him for a specific task, and he has to do that task. And it was in the process of trying to complete that task that he encountered Goliath. And then the mission, it transitions to the real mission, the real reason God brought him there. So parents have to recognize that something you are telling your child, even though you think it's an ordinary parent-child communication, could be a way for God to introduce something to that child. So try to make sure that the child understands what you are saying. You should know how to communicate with your child, so make sure that you communicate clearly enough for the child to understand. And at times, there's nothing wrong with verifying before the child actually leaves for the errand, verifying that he or she understands the objective of the errand. I'm sending you to go to your brothers and get information from them about their condition at the battlefront. That's it. Yes, in the process, give this cheese to their commander and give these grains to your brothers, and these loaves of bread, whatever. But the loaves of bread and all that those are just side benefits. Something he will take to them because he was going there. But the objective was go and get information from them about their condition. Clean the house. Go and clean the house. It's not dust this table. No. Clean the house. So make sure the house is clean. That's how you complete the task. Go and get me a drink of water. Okay? Go and get a drink of water and make sure you bring it to me. All these little things, at times they are just by themselves. They are not connected to anything. At times they are obviously each errand adds up to the experience of a child. So even that by itself is important, making sure that the experience is developed completely. But the added importance here is that each errand may actually be something you are doing because God prompted you to get the child started on a mission, to get the child started in the pursuit of an important life experience, or to get the child to do something. Well, let us look at a few what if. We've really talked about this, so these are just like summarizing what we did. Suppose Samuel refused to respond to Eli. Then he would have rejected the call to become a prophet. Only read this from 1 Samuel chapter 3, verses 4 and 5.
1 Samuel chapter 3, reading from the New International Version. Verse 4. Then the Lord called Samuel. Samuel answered, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." But Eli said, "I did not call. Go back and lie down." So he went and lay down.
And this happened 3 times. Well, the response to Eli changed on the 3rd time. But each time Samuel had the call, he ran. Look at how the Bible put it. He ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." It doesn't matter how many times, it didn't bother him that it happened so many times. And if any of this did not happen, if his behavior had been different, remember what we're talking about here is when God started Samuel on his career as a prophet. This was his call to become a prophet. It was his first interaction with God. Somebody will say, okay, if it didn't happen this time, yeah, maybe God would have called him another time. Maybe, we don't know. God really could have made Samuel realize there and then I'm talking to you, but he chose to go through a process. As I looked at this, when we looked at it, what I felt was God wanted Samuel to receive parental permission from Eli. That's human interpretation. It may have been something else, but he went through that process. And if Samuel didn't play his role in the process, maybe that would have been the end of it. Maybe we wouldn't know much about Samuel today. Let's do the other what if. Honey, something about Samuel? Or?
No,
okay.
We've dealt with it.
Okay, what if Joseph refused when his father asked him to go and take things to his brothers that were taking care of their animals, their domestic animals, their farm animals in Shechem? Suppose he found a reason not to go. Oh, my stomach is hurting. Oh, my leg, I hurt my toe yesterday. You can't see it, but it's hurting. That kind of thing. He would not have gone. Maybe he would have tired out his father with excuses, and his father would have said, well, okay, don't worry, you go tomorrow. But the sequence of things that happened on that incident. Maybe his father would have found another way. Let us read the key verse, 2 verses here. Or 1, actually.
That's the book Genesis 37 verse 14. Then he said to him, please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me. So he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem.
Yes. Please go and see if it is well. So check on the condition of your brothers, check on the condition of the flock, and bring word back to me. Bring information back to me. That's the complete errand. And that's what Joseph wanted to do. When he got to Shechem, he didn't see them. He wandered, looked for them until he found somebody that said, oh, they've gone to Dothan. He went to Dothan. What if David refused Jesse's request? The same thing. David was a shepherd. So if he wanted an excuse, he could have come up with several of them. But he accepted, and not only he accepted, he actually understood. Let us read it. 2 verses of 1 Samuel, I didn't put here, I think it's chapter 1 Samuel, I think it's 17 actually.
Okay, want me to check?
Yeah, 1 Samuel, I think it's 17.
17,
Yeah.
verse 17.
Verses 17 and 18.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, only reading.
Okay, so it's from 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 17. Then Jesse said to his son David, take now for your brothers an ephah of this dried grain, and these 10 loaves, and run to your brothers at the camp, and carry these 10 cheeses to the captain of their 1,000, and see how your brothers fare, and bring back news of them.
Yeah. See how they fare and bring back news. So, I mean, the remarkable similarity in these two errands is quite, I don't know what it means, but they are remarkably similar. Yeah. Okay. We've looked at what a child needs to do to receive messages from parents, and it all boils down to being obedient, having a positive fear of your parents, being obedient for your parents, seeking to please your parents. We find that God actually left that as one of his key instructions to people. Key instructions about relationship between the child and the parent. Let us read this from Exodus chapter 20 on verse 12.
Exodus chapter 20 verse 12, reading from the New King James Version. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you.
Honor your father and your mother. That means have positive fear of your parents. Seek to please them. Seek to do things for them. Seek to listen to them. Seek to obey them. Seek to hear what they are saying and implement it. And the reason for this, God didn't say, but he said what will happen is that if you do this, then your days will be long. That you have a long and successful life. Well, I believe one of the connections is that so that you will receive the messages that God will send to you through your parents. And it's not just receiving them, you will be able to implement the messages because you have developed a habit of doing what your parents say, a habit of listening to your parents and implementing what they tell you.
Yeah, I think that's something that is important here. There's an adage that goes that it is the child that does dishes that breaks plates. Now, the similarity between the call on David and the call on Joseph, you could pick one thing from there, that these two are children that honor their parents.
Yes. Yes.
These two are children that honor their parents. And because of that, God knew that if he sends this message through their parents, they are bound to do it.
Yes.
Because he came.
Yes.
Because of the fact that they honor their parents. And their parents also know that these children listen to us, they respect us. So if we send them on an errand, they are bound to do it the way we have said.
Yes.
Not every child, a couple behave the same way.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but this fact about honoring your parents is a requirement, is a criterion required. And this particular one is the first of the 10 commandments that has a promise attached to it.
Yes.
All the other ones, thou shalt not do, thou shalt not do, thou shalt not do.
Yeah.
But this one has a promise attached to it, so that your days may be long in the land which the Lord your God is giving you.
Yes. It's a very deep promise.
So it has a promise.
Yes.
And it's because of the relevance of this honor that a child bestows on the parents that promise is there. It's like the same way that when you honor God, when you honor God, he just can't leave you. Yeah. You honor him. You say, I will never leave you nor forsake you.
Yes.
So it's a very important criteria.
Yes. Okay, this tells us to what did we learn. It's really to receive, just a quick summary, to receive messages that God sends to you through your parents. You have to develop a habit of being available to your parents and having positive fear of your parents, honoring your parents. Positive fear means you always seek to please them, you always seek to listen to them, you always seek to obey them. You love your parents and you want to do what they tell you. You want to understand so that you can complete what they have told you to do. And if you have this habit, then one is not only that you will subject yourself well and take full benefit of parental training, family training, but more important is that if any of these, which we know will happen because this is what God does, that He sends messages to you through the parents. You pick up the message, you receive the message well, and do what you were told to do and gain the experience that God wants you to get. It goes to listening to your teacher in class, that the specific instructions that your teacher, even when you think you know more than the teacher, listen, because through that there might be an instruction that is in fact coming to you from God through this teacher. That God has programmed it for you to hear a certain instruction at a certain time because it's important to something that He wants you to know. If you are listening, you will get it. If you don't listen, you won't get it. Maybe you will get it another way, that we don't know. But you better take advantage of the opportunity that you are given. Listen to your parents, listen to adults that have a parental role in your life. And then you will be able to pick messages that God sends to you through them.
That's a very important charge that you have given to them. The same thing goes to parents, to be able to, in raising their words, to be able to take them through the process of being accountable to messages that they've been given and doing the things the way they have been asked to do it. There might be times when they might be genuinely truncated, but make sure your child is not doing things out of sycophancy, or trying to gain cheap popularity or cheap favor, where you are bothered. Is something that you're building in them, the ability to honor the people that have parental authority over them at each point in time, and to follow through with instructions.
Yes. Yes. And that brings us to the end of this Bible study. It was supposed to be short, but it's really a big topic, and we were undoubtedly drawn to say more, at times a little more, on each topic. We have a bigger Bible study series on parent-child relationships, which I don't know when we are going to start it. I don't know when we'll launch it. We don't have sufficient information to do it, so we're going to leave it at this for now, but we'll return to other aspects of parent-child relationship later on. This is a very important aspect of our Banking Blessing Bible Study series, because our interest is really understand God's purpose for human interactions and human relationships. And one of the central purposes, of course, we know, is parents training their children to become independent and responsible adults. So we'll look at this. We thank you for joining us. Thank you for paying attention to this part. There were 5 studies in this series, so we pray and expect that you will become interested and go and look at them and actually learn something from them that makes a positive impact on your life, makes a positive impact on how you interact with your parents or with your children, depending on who you are. Thank you for listening, and God bless you.
God bless you.